happy birthday to me. Well, it's not my birthday, but it is the 4th anniversary of the launch of Outlaw Bookseller, which appeared for the first time on YouTube on the 5th of September 2021. So today, an important announcement about how the channel will be changing slightly, some acknowledgements, some reflections, and a bit about books as well. Just a little quick aside, what am I reading at the moment? On the book front, I'm reading The Lost District by Joel Lane from Influx Press, which is run by the very wonderful writer Gary Bedden. Joel Lane, English writer, no longer with us, sadly. He was the same age as me, but died at the age of 50, which is, 12 years ago. And as Adam Neville says, he was a poet of misfits, outsiders, and the forsaken. His empathy for their suffering ever poignant. That's what we do here, misfits, outsiders, and the forsaken. Karl Edward Wagner said that he was a master at creating moods of disturbing and disorientating strangeness set against backgrounds of urban decay. Really, really good urban horror, short stories, flashes the supernatural, fairly subtle stuff. Really, really good. A bit like sort of dark chocolate as opposed to sort of full milk, really great stuff. So I'm enjoying it at the moment. And I'm sort of working my way gradually through all of Joel's works. I got on board with him very late, which I feel bad about. But he is really, really good. And these editions from Influx Press, published over the last few years in the UK, are absolutely gorgeous. So treat yourself to some neo-noir urban horror of the sophisticated kind. So, yeah, so it's 4 years. As I say, there's going to be some more stuff later on. I want to talk about one writer in particular, science fiction writer. But, yeah, so it's... what has changed? Well, after the first 3 years of the channel, 1 year ago, I launched a members area, which I called the Club Room. And in the Club Room, there's an exclusive video uploaded every week. Members pay $4.99 a month, and there's a backlist of around 50 videos there, because I say there's been one a week. So if you join, there's a lot of content to watch. And Club Room members have, in the last year, guaranteed the survival of this channel. Not that I'm underrating anybody else, so I'm going to come on to everybody else later on. But they were seminally important for me in September last year on the 3rd anniversary of the channel, because the channel was facing closure due to my suffering from polymyalgia rheumatica for the last 2.5 years. It was 1.5 years then, it's 2.5 years now. So thank you to Club Room members, particularly. Without your support in the last 12 months, Outlaw Bookseller will have folded, because I've had to decrease my sort of release rate and slow down. And if you've seen the video I did the other day about how my illness affects the channel, you'll get to see in detail, so do watch that. But for everybody else who watches, all the other subscribers, and there are many people who've been watching virtually from the beginning who haven't become Club Room members for various reasons, you've probably been wondering what's behind the paywall. But going forward, you will now get an opportunity to see some of this previously exclusive material. And that's because starting next Monday on the, what date is it? The 8th of September, I'll be releasing one archive video from the Club Room library every fortnight. So you'll get to see some of the stuff that's been there for a year. So in the months to come, there'll be 2 videos that previously only a couple of hundred people have seen. So they will be seeing those for the first time, and they'll be clearly labelled as archive releases, so you can have a look at them. So if you've already seen them in the Club Room, then you won't have to watch them again. And many of the videos in the members areas will, however, remain in the Club Room library vault for Club Room member access only. So if you want to see those things, you can join. So the number of videos in the Club Room will continue to be quite high, and there will still be a new one every week. So over the next year, 26 videos will merge from the library and the Club Room into open access, and 52 new videos will be filmed for members' eyes only. So the Club Room is still worth joining for $4.99 a month if you want to support the channel. One of the key topics of this channel, science fiction, is of course the literature of change. And as one matures, comes out of youth, settles down, changes come less often in life. And often after decades of work, partnership, domesticity, other routines, one longs for change, and one hopes the change comes along. And the aging soul particularly longs for change. For me, I hope for the cessation of illness, for retirement, for moving to a bigger home, better to accommodate my book collection. And like most people, I'm not going to downshift, I'm going to upshift. But those changes are unlikely to come soon for the Outlaw Bookseller. So as we go into the channel's 5th year, we may get into other areas. The health thing will always be a big determinant. So I may do a Patreon launch, I'm thinking about it. I may do a Substack instead, because I'm desperate to get into writing. And one of the reasons why I can't write is because I spend so much time on YouTube, and obviously I work still as well. Any further changes will be contingent upon my health above all, but we'll see what happens, we'll see. So reflections to come, but at this point, some thanks and acknowledgements to the video widow, my partner, who has put up with me, my mother, who's been helpful as well, Jules Burt, my old colleague from work, has been great in the early days with advice, and we haven't collabed much recently, but we are getting back into that hopefully from next week onwards. Special shout out to Matt at Bookpilled, who is the first person who gave me, a real boost in the early days, and we'll come back to that a bit later on. To the Occupier, Phil Barnes, Steve Holmes and Simon Hemmings for fantastic music that they've given me, and do visit their Bandcamp sites. And to dealers and booksellers like Dorset Bob and Morris at Zardoz, All You Need Is Books, to Cold Tonnage, Andy Richards, Fine Edition Books, Mike there. Also to Graham Bray, the other grumpy old man who appears on this channel sometimes, and hopefully Graham will be back on here soon. He has had 2 strokes recently. To other friends who have popped up in the videos, to Trevor, Mark, Colin, Ben Stabley-Taylor, formerly of Kerosena, and to other channels as well who I've sort of bonded with as time has gone on, like Matt Defoe at Science Fiction Reads, Richard Rempel at Vintage SF, John at Sci-Fi Scavenger, to Ira at SF Words of Wonder, Chris at Liminal Spaces, and other channels as well. There's been some great sort of people out there, and it's been great fun watching how everybody is evolving and how things move on, and it is really interesting stuff, Also to writers, some of whom no longer with us, who've helped with the channel: Christopher Priest, sadly no longer around, M. John Harrison, Michael Moorcock, always an absolute delight, Mike, and we're in touch regularly, and he really sort of helps keep my spirits up. He's irrepressible. Chris Beckett, hopefully there'll be a new book from Chris Beckett later this, well, it won't be this year, it'll be next year, looking forward to that. Nina Allen, who has been finishing off the biography of J.G. Ballard that Christopher Priest started. It's called The Illuminated Man. That will come out next year. There'll be a review probably of Nina's latest book on the channel quite soon. To my old chum Tom Toner, whose recent book, published as Casper Guion, is out there now. To Stark Holborn and Emma Newman, and hopefully I haven't forgot anybody, so there's a few writers mentioned there as well. Also to you, the viewers, special mentions to Chris Skillings, who's been amazing. Simon Proctor has been fantastic. Chris Badenoch, who helped with some of the graphics. To Walter, you know who you are, Walt. Danielle out there, all the long-term viewers, and you guys have sort of helped sort of buoy things up, so you guys all deserve kudos as well. So in short, I really want to thank everybody who's ever subscribed, liked, commented, gifted me books, tipped me via super thanks, and just watched the channel. I've been overwhelmed by your generosity, both materially and of spirit, and it's the generosity of spirit has been a really, really big thing. So every one of you counts as far as I'm concerned, and as you will have seen on the channel, I try and answer as many comments as possible, and at times I thought I'm going to cut back on that. But often, things that people say are thoughtful and they require a reply or at least an acknowledgement. And I think that's the least that one can do. And obviously, if things get ridiculously out of hand where there's millions of comments to one video, I might not be able to do that. But I like doing it. It's a big part of it. So, it's an important thing. So I'm going to try and keep doing it if I can. So some reflections on the channel. There's round about, how many videos have I made? I think it's at least 650, which is a lot. So it's the Protestant work ethic. We're just over 15,700 subscribers. So I hope to be at 16,000 within a month or so, I would hope. And 7 months. Then let's go back a bit further than that. how did things develop early on? 6 months after launching, I only had 493 subscribers, 6 months, and I was really ready to quit. And I want to mention again that Matt at Bookpilled gave me a shout out on his channel, and he described me as a voice of real authority, which was really, really charming of him. And because Matt's a great guy, a very insightful critic and very funny as well, that sort of really gave me the boost and got me towards the 1,000 mark. And after 7 months after I launched, I hit the 4,000 hours of view, which is the first criteria that you need to hit to monetize. And after 8 months, which was on May the 22nd in 2022 rather, I hit 1,000 subscribers so I can monetize. In late August that year, I received my first payout, which was £87. There was then a hiatus because the way things were going. And in late October, I had a payout of £110, and I've got something monthly ever since, and I pay my tax. So it took me a year to get established and into a situation where the channel would sort of pay for itself and go towards my time and effort and what have you. So that was my journey in brief in the first year. So, to quote the motto of the Royal Air Force, per ardua ad astra, through difficulty to the stars, arduous, difficult. See, words are important, aren't they? So, in what way was I a pioneer? Was I a pioneer at all? Plenty of other people did SF Booktube before me, but I was the first booktuber to film at Zardoz. I was the first booktuber to film at Dorset Bob's, so I've made dealer visits a bit of a thing, and obviously Jules has been doing those as well, and we've done some together, and we're hoping to do one next week, so you'll probably see that on the channel next week, I hope, or the week after, because I do have a holiday next week. I'm going to take it easy for a few days, and I defied convention with crap thumbnails and ever-changing theme tunes. I refused to say sci-fi, even if it meant that I would be discovered late or not at all, because obviously that's a handy tag. And my ethos really was to make the channel as informal as it could be, but still serious, so you'd get the flavour of what it was like to sit with me and my science fiction oriented mates in the pub, and just chat about things, and have some fun, as well as do some serious stuff too. I filmed some videos in Italy and France, often talking about books in them, videos often ignored by many subscribers. I mean, with nearly 16,000 subscribers, most of these things have had 1,000 or less. But I'm not changing for anybody, because I'm the Outlaw Bookseller. So enough of me glorifying myself on this channel. What about talking about some books for a change? Well, I'm going to lead into this by showing you this charming little card. There you go, it's a little cat who lives on a starship, and he's looking out the window and he can see Jupiter and some of its moons and another ship there. Really good piece of art there. And it's by Ship's Cat. Who's it by? By somebody with one word name, and I can't read it because my eyes is completely gone. But yeah, this was sent to me by Bruce in Toronto. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce sends me a card regularly. He sends one to Richard as well. He's a charming chap. What is it about the Canadians? I keep saying this. They're just fantastic people. My favourite Canadian artist is David Cronenberg, the world's greatest science fiction filmmaker. Though I did watch The Shrouds recently, and I have to say I was disappointed with it. I don't often say that about Cronenberg, because normally he just really, really does my thing. But anyway, what did Bruce say, and how does this relate to the books I'm going to talk about? Well, he sent me this card in August the 13th, and it was buried under a pile of stuff in the staff room at work, lots of freebies for people, for my colleagues and what have you. And he says, "Dear Steve, it's been a while since my last note, so I thought I would reach out. I've enjoyed the recent videos, best ways to present science fiction books, and the overview of John Wyndham." That was in the club room. "Alas, I think you're right of the declining efforts to attract younger men and boys to books." And, that has been something I've talked about a lot, as you know. "At bookshops in Canada, there is some effort to appeal to older men, brackets, dad books, brackets, at least. In other news, I finished reading Rogue Moon by Algis Budrys yesterday." So let's have a look at Rogue Moon. There you go. And that's the Gollancz SF Classic Edition, Classic SF Edition, which I bought back in, let's have a look. This would have been, what number is this? Number 11 in the series. So I'm thinking 1987. Let's have a look. 1987. Beautiful, as you can see, and I've read it a few times, and Rogue Moon is often described as a precursor of the new wave. It came out in 1960, and it's a bit of a big dumb object book in a way, because it's about this strange alien artifact on the moon, Shades of 2001, which of course came later, even though the Sentinel came earlier. And it's like a maze or a trap, and people go into it and they don't come out. They're killed by it, and nobody knows anything about it. It's very enigmatic and strange. So Bruce says, I'm close to the halfway mark in the 100 must-read list. He's referring to my book that he's reading them all. He found the book to be a struggle in some ways. The musings on identity and memory and the thoughtful dialogue were high points. My inner hard SF fan was disappointed at, and this is a spoiler, so if you want to switch off for a few seconds, do so, okay? The decision to offer no reveal of the moon object. Still an interesting read. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for the lovely card. So, but that's the thing, you see, Precursor the New Wave. It's that recognition that mysteries in life will always be there. No matter how much we know, there'll always be things which are unknowable. And that's why SF excites it so much. The sense of wonder, of discovery, or as I call it, the sublime. And you know me, I always invoke the romantics who were searching for the awe, terror and beauty of the natural world. And this is the thing, science fiction is the natural world, not the supernatural world, as I've often said. So if you've not read Rogue Moon, do read it. It's really good. But that got me thinking about Budrys, who I've read a few things by him, but I feel I should read more. I've read about 5 books by him, and it doesn't seem like a lot. He's an interesting figure, and something I've mentioned a few times, and I haven't reviewed it fully because it's years since I've read it in depth, but I mention it whenever I talk about cyberpunk, is this book, Michaelmas, which is brilliant, really, really good. And I would say if you're going to pick up your first Budrys, I mean, the one people naturally go for is Rogue Moon because it's in all the reference books, including mine. But Michaelmas is really good. This is sort of mid-70s, and this is about a very ethical news reporter and journalist. He's a very urbane chap. His name's Michaelmas, hence the title. And he travels the world with his briefcase, and he's got an AI in the briefcase. It's like a pocket computer. The briefcase opens up and it's a computer inside. And it's a lot more intelligent than anybody realizes. And they collaborate together, and between them they manipulate the media and various other things. He plugs it into the phone network, you know, as we used to do with our modems back in the sort of late 90s. And he sort of runs the world. They sort of run the world, and it's very benevolent. It's really, really good. And there is a sequel as well, but I really, really recommend this. So if you find Rogue Moon a little bit too hard SFE and not quite doing it for you, I would say read this as a cyberpunk precursor. I will do a proper review one day because I want to reread it because it is great. He is an inconsistent writer, not always brilliant, but at his best, he's fantastic. And I always think of a certain short story by him, which is in this book, The Furious Future, which, as you can see, was published by Quartet. This is back in the 70s. Let's have a look. Is Quartet still going as an imprint? I'm not certain. Published by Quartet in 1975. First published by Gollancz in 1964, and there's a US edition 63. So these are early stories from 52 to 63 by Budrys. Jim Burns jacket, as I say, very nice. And I always think of one story in here particularly, which I've reread this morning. And it's an interesting thing when you go back to a story after a long time, because the impression will stay with you. And you go back to it. And I had to sort of search through to find which one it was, as I couldn't remember the title. And it's called Between the Dark and the Daylight. And in the introduction, he says about how it's one of his favourite stories and how it was inspired by a story called The Avenger by Damon Knight, which I don't think I've read, but I must seek out. I blow hot and cold with Damon Knight, but he said that really that story stuck in his head, so he had to do kind of a variant on it. And even though I have no memory of reading The Avenger, I can see the Knightisms in the story I'm referring to in here, which again, as I say, is Between the Dark and the Daylight. It's a short story, 15 pages. It's very good. And it really looks at the concept of pantropy, which James Blish did in The Seedling Stars, and which Adrian Tchaikovsky does in Children of Time, you know, the really, really popular one. But of course, this is only 15 pages, so it's far superior in my opinion. But anyway, basic plot is that you have colonists who are presumably from Earth, and they have made a voyage to an alien planet, which is very, very hostile in terms of its biology and its climate and what have you. And they've been there for generations, and they live inside a dome because the exterior, say, is pretty savage. And over that time, they have been obviously growing their own food, and they've been working on themselves and gradually installing genetic mutations so that eventually a point will come when there's a generation who can go outside, live in the harsh environment, and deal with its deadly fauna. You know, there's some really sort of incredibly dangerous animals out there, and it's cold and wet. It's a very unpleasant place. Why it's chosen as a colony planet, who can say? But it must fit apart from those things. The characters are something like an 8th or 9th generation. They've been there for a long time, and there is a conflict between the leader and the other characters there, and it's all centered around the fact that the newest generation of children has taken a next step in mutation, and the question is whether these are the ones which will be allowed out into the wilderness of the planet, because they will be changed enough to deal with the flora and fauna and to deal with the climatic conditions. And there is a sort of certain amount of daring do around that. And of course, because they've been working on this self-mutating gradually, the people in this, they've developed things like sagittal crests and supraorbital ridges and fangs and claws on their feet and things like that, but they still talk like human beings. And there is this power conflict going on. And the animals outside the dome are always attacking it. They've been attacking it for generations and generations. And the children are in a nursery, and everybody who's born over the generations lives in this nursery, and at some point they're brought out and educated in how to run the dome. But this final generation of children is too savage for that. They are ready to go into the outside. And it does this wonderful mirroring thing where it deals with, is it the right moment? There's the power struggle, and then there's the climax, which is absolutely fantastic. And it really does stay in your mind. But it did remind me of other Damon Knight things like The Country of the Kind, where there's this wonderful mixture between savagery and the implications of social Darwinism, and also a very thoughtful philosophical take on things. And Budrys is like that. You know, you get this real good mixture of hard toughness, but also very thoughtful ideas. And that's something the science fiction is really good at. So do try and pick this up if you see it. There's some other good stories in there from what I remember. And something I really would like to do is get back to rereading more, and I love rereading, but of course one has lots of new books, and my TBR is just huge. I was fiddling around with some stuff the other day, and I managed to get a load of books I haven't read together, so I've got like a small TBR area. What I really should do is put all the books I haven't read together and have like a TBR shelf, but I just don't have the space, but we'll see. So that's just a brief look at one writer who, if you haven't read, do give him a try, because he's really, really good. But as I say, this is the one in all the reference books. This is the one I most rate. The one that I don't rate is Who, ? Which was made into a film. I don't think Who's very good at all. It was a real disappointment. I tried to read it twice. I don't think the film was much cop either. And it's sort of like a late Cold War thing about a guy who comes back to the USA after being in the Soviet area, and he's got this mask on over his head which he won't take off, and he says that he's a certain agent, but they think he's actually a double agent. But it's really, really not a very good book. I was sort of really disappointed by that one. But other than that, give Budrys a try. He's really good. So what's next on the channel? So I say next week you will see the first of the clubroom videos coming out, and I'm hoping over the next few days to get out and about. The weather's been dreadful, of course. Recently I'm having roofing done, and that's been an absolute nightmare. The cost of that has virtually doubled, which hasn't improved my mood, but you know, it is what it is. And I'm hoping tomorrow to go and do an out and about in South Wales, fingers crossed, so something might come out of that. And then middle of next week, I think Jules and I are going down to see Dorset Bob, so something will hopefully come out of that. I may not post a new video next week apart from the clubroom release, because I want to have some downtime, because we're just about to go into the really sort of busy time of year. We're starting to get Christmas stock in already, and it's going to be very, very intense. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But thank you everybody for watching this, watching all the videos. for those of you who joined the club room. As I say, you'd really helped save things a year ago, and you really helped keep me going. But also to all of you, everybody who watches and watches consistently is really, really important. And if you've just turned up for the first time, watch some of the stuff that's on the channel. Watch the backlist. There's plenty of stuff there to watch, as I always say. And, you know, we'll go forward into the 5th year and we'll see what comes out of it. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing out for now. Hope you're enjoying what you're reading. Tell me what you're reading below. Maybe I'll react to it, because I'd like to know what you guys are reading. It's not all about me after all, you know, it's just about you guys as well. So tell me what you're reading underneath, and maybe we'll come back to that, and I'll do a video and talk about that, because I'd love to know what you guys are getting into at the moment. Thanks a lot. Cheers from me and everybody on the Outlaw Bookseller team, which is basically me and the video editor. And I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.